to be another, there must be another permission or permissibility. Then the third stage, it has to do with the sources through which you acquire. Even if what you eat is halal by default, but the means through which you acquire it is very important. But unfortunately, Muslims of today, they are much more concerned about the type of food to be eaten, forgetting actually the source through which they acquire that food, which is very important. The reason for this preamble is that the major issue that we're going to discuss centered around how we earn our living, particularly towards the end of our life, because most of the participants here are working class, either with the public or private sectors. And there is this mandatory system that we've been placed upon with the introduction of Pension Reform Act of 2005 or 2004 or 2014 as amended, which made it compulsory for all employees in public sector and organized private sector to enroll into this system. And this system, nobody cares to find out whether it is Sharia compliant or not, and we are all enrolled in it and we are comfortably living within the system. So generally, pension system is a national policy usually being introduced in form of a fixed amount by either government or a company to their employees, having considered serving the company or the government for a long period of time. So now, towards the end of their life, the government or the company will now take care of them. There are so many types of pension, but the broader ones are the defined contribution and the defined benefit. For the last one, defined benefit is the one that was been in operation prior to 2004, when the Pension Reform Act introduced contributory pension scheme. And many states and local governments of Nigeria still remain under this contributory pension, this defined benefit pension scheme. When you look at this from Sharia perspective, this type of pension scheme has no much Sharia implications, because what is given by either the government or the company is a benevolent gift from the employer to former employee. So it is a contract of benevolence, that is contract of tabarru. So even if there is uncertainty in it, it will not affect or it will not relegate its permissibility. The second type is the one that is being introduced by the contributory pension scheme, which is called defined contribution. This one has so many implications because there is a fixed amount being contributed, and it is usually managed by the private sector. And you are going to be given something out of what you deposited or what is being deposited on your behalf. So this type of pension scheme is the one that is being adopted or introduced by Pension Reform Act to mitigate so many problems associated with the pension system in the country, which includes non-budgetary provision, delay in payment. We've seen so many instances where retirees or former civil servants got paralyzed because of the issues related to pension. So this is what necessitated a reform where a Chilean model is brought in 2002 and between 2002 and 2003. Then later Pension Reform Act came into being, which become mandatory for all employees in the federal government, and some states also replicated it and domesticated these laws. So generally, the system has so many stakeholders. It introduced, or the act itself established a regulator, which is called PENCOM, Nigerian Pension Commission. And there are pension fund administrators who are the administrators of the funds, and there are pension funds custodians who are the custodians of the funds. Then there are retirees or PRA holders, or RSA holders, retirement savings account holders. So the function of each organ is being specified clearly by the act establishing them. We will not take much time on this. And it also made a provision, particularly the Pension Reform Act 2014 as amended, provided that pension funds assets are to be invested in federal government bonds, treasury bills, related securities, quoted bonds, deposit securities, quoted investment certificates, real estate investments, and other specified securities and equities that are to be certified or to be introduced by the regulator, which is the Pension Reform, which is the PENCOM, Nigerian Pension Commission. The major issue, Sharia non-compliance issue, is associated with these investment portfolios, which are typically conventional and they are interest-bearing facilities. Therefore, what this is telling you is that a retiree is now being introduced and subjected to live at the end of his life on the proceeds of interest. And you know how Islam prohibited the issue of interest, and there is no compromise in it. To say in another word, the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ مَنْ طَالَ عُمُرُهُ وَحَسُنَ عَمَلُهُ وَشَرُّ النَّاسِ مَنْ طَالَ عُمُرُهُ وَسَاءَ عَمَلُهُ. That is, the best among people is the one who lives longer and he has been doing good deeds, while the opposite is the worst among people is the one who lives longer and has very few good deeds. So going by this, whoever is placed on this conventional system towards the end of his life, as he is getting and drawing closer to his grave, he is now going to be living on the proceeds of bonds, debentures, treasury bills, and other conventional and interest-bearing instruments. And this is very dangerous. And this is what led to the agitation by so many concerned people, having identified these instruments to be non-Sharia compliant, for the need to establish alternative Sharia compliant system. And the identified elements of prohibition are: one, riba associated with these facilities; two, gharar, which is uncertainty. You know, riba and gharar are the two major prohibitions in Islamic economics. Anything that has to do with riba, gharar, uncertainty, speculation is not allowed in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it categorically in places in the Holy Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa dharu ma baqiya min ar-riba in kuntum mu'minin. Alladhina ya'kuluna ar-riba la yaqumuna illa kama yaqumu alladhi yatakhabbathu ash-shaytanu min al-mas. Dhalika bi annahum qalu innama al-bay'u mithlu ar-riba wa ahalla Allahu al-bay'a wa harrama ar-riba. Therefore, these instruments are interest-bearing, that they contain so many elements of riba. So also gharar. The Prophet ﷺ has prohibited bay'ul gharar. Naha Rasulullah ﷺ and bay'il gharar, as it comes in hadith being transmitted by Imam Abu Huraira. So also dealing in some equities of some companies that are dealing in non-Sharia compliant instruments, in haram instruments, because there is no restriction or no discrimination. Any equity of any company can be traded in as long as it satisfies the financial requirement or capital requirements of the exchange platforms of NGX or any other OTC platform. So therefore, all this necessitated reform in the pension sector, or necessitated need for alternative, at least for the people who are very conscious of the teachings of their religion, who are very conscious of their source of income to be in line with the basis and fundamentals of their belief. And that is why there were so many agitations, particularly from 2000 in the country, that is with this license given to Jaiz Bank to operate as the first or as the pioneer non-interest or Islamic banking in the country. Subsequently, other sectors of insurance and capital market also got their own regulations which regulate their activities. And from there, we have so many non-interest financial institutions in the country. Fund administrator and closed pension fund administrators. This multi-fold structure that was introduced in July 2018 provided six funds. Fund 1 is for retirees that are below 50 years. So also Fund 2 is for the retirees below 50 years, while Fund 3 is for the retirees who are close to retirement, for the employees below 50 years, and Fund 2 is for the employees below 50 years also, but they can choose to migrate between this or that, while Fund 3 is for the retirees, for the employees that are above 50 years who are very close to their retirement, either statutorily or by age. Then Fund 4 is for the retirees who have already exited out of service. Then Fund 5 is the micro pension scheme, while the Fund 6 is the non-interest fund, which has two types. There is Fund 6 functional or active, which is dedicated for the employees that are within the active service, while the Fund 6 second type is for the retirees who have already exited out of the service. So this Fund 6 structure has paved a way for the implementation of the non-interest pension system in the country. Then the first 4 funds were activated by PENCOM instantly in 2018, while the remaining 2, micro pension and the ethical fund, which is Fund 6, delayed. The PENCOM released operational guidelines for the non-interest funds of pension on the 22nd June 2021. That is about 15 months from now, or 18 months from now. So the major objective of this is to assist those that want their own pension funds to be invested in ethical funds or in a Sharia compliant manner. They will be given this opportunity, and the regulator will regulate it, and it will also aid financial inclusion, where many people that cannot join the voluntary contribution, or they will not add the voluntary contribution because of the Sharia constraints or non-compliance constraints, they can now go into it. The structure also established and provided some allowable instruments that will replace the conventional instruments that are not Sharia compliant. One of these instruments is sukuk. And I know you all know sukuk, even if you don't know the detail, but you must have been seeing it even within the FCT, particularly with the sukuk 4, which is recently spread across about 3 ministries: Federal Ministry of Works, Federal Ministry of Niger Delta, I think, then the FCT. So these sukuk are one of the instruments that are to be that the assets of the Fund 6 to be invested in. Then beside the sovereign sukuk of federal government, there are other corporate sukuk, like the one introduced by family homes. So also other supranational sukuk that are subnational, sub-sovereign, that is the ones that are fully rated, that are issued by state governments, in as long as the states are already pension compliant, that is they have introduced contributory pension scheme. So also other Sharia compliant market instruments, that is the equities that passed the non-interest or Islamic screening. There are 2 layers of screening for equities to pass or to be classified as Islamic equities or Sharia compliant equities. The first one is the industry screening. We have to make sure that it does not belong to non-halal industry. That is not breweries, it's not ammunition, it's not pornography, there is no speculation and all of that. Then the second screening is the capital or is the financial screening, which screens the total market capitalization that must be below 30% of the non-interest or interest-bearing capitalization. So also the funds, the Sharia compliant infrastructure funds, so also Sharia compliant private equities, and the Sharia compliant open, closed and hybrid funds. All these are the allowable instruments that Fund 6 established, which means that if you are in the Fund 6, your money or your RSA balance, retirement savings account balance, will now be invested in a Sharia compliant manner, which has been certified by the Sharia advisors or advisory committee of experts of the respective financial institutions. And it is being based on principles of either wakala, which is agency, which has very wide practice in Islamic finance industry, or mudaraba, which is partnership. And the details of these two, I think, will be explained in subsequent presentations. So the relationship between the pension fund administrators and the RSA holders is either relationship of partners who are partnering in investment, the Rabbul Mal and the entrepreneur, that is the owner of the capital and the entrepreneur in case of Mudaraba, or agent and the master, that is the one that is owning the capital. And in issue 2, the guidelines established for 6 structure has specifically provided the template and the system through which each party will get its own share. Like for example, the rate for charging Fund 6 active is going to be based on Wakala bil Istithmar, while for those active retirees is going to be based on Mudaraba. Beside this, there is Sharia governance, which is very important and which is key to ensure compliance, because Sharia governance is one of the added layer of the corporate governance in Islamic financial industry, which is specifically developed to ensure that there is no violation of the Islamic rules. Because if this structure is not being put in, while in reality they are not, they are just providing names, empty names, without conducting what they are doing in reality. So it will be a nominal Sharia compliance institution. Therefore, the Sharia compliance governance is there. The PENCOM adopted two layers of Sharia compliance. One is the phrase Financial Regulations Advisory Council of Experts. They will serve as the Sharia Board of Advisors for the pension industry. This is at the regulatory level. Then there is Pension Industry Non-Interest Advisory Committee, which is called PINAC, which is the one that is going to be working hand in hand with the regulator under the general umbrella of the PENOP, what they call Pension Operators Association. The one to have jointly, they will own or nominate members of this joint Sharia structure or Sharia supervisory board. And it is very important to have this in place, which will ensure that even if there is non-permissible incomes, which you call PMIs, NPIs, the non-permissible incomes that may accrue with the non-interest or with the pension fund administrator, they will make sure that all these are disposed to charity as provided by the Islamic financial principles. So generally, this is the system that is being introduced by the Fund 6, which I believe many employees that are RSA holders are unaware of it, and it has been operational for about 1.5 years. The major challenges for this is one, inadequacy of Sharia compliant instruments. Inadequacy of Sharia compliant instruments. As we have listed, the instrument through which pension funds could be invested, most of them are not available in the country. When you take, for example, the Sukuk, the total issuances of the sovereign Sukuk in Nigeria is not up to 700 billion. That is starting from Sukuk 1 up to Sukuk 4 of 2022, the issuances are not up to 700 billion. While the total market capitalization of the pension industry now is 14.4 trillion. 14.4 trillion. So if to say, for example, 10% of the owners of this amount are to migrate to Fund 6, how much is the total value? It's going to be about 1.4 trillion. So from 2017 to date, about 5 years, the total value of the issuances of Sukuk in Nigeria is below 1 trillion. So we have a very long way to go. That's the growth of the Fund 6 is delaying, and it is very slowly, it's moving very slowly. As of the end of September this year, that is at the end of the third quarter, the net asset value of Fund 6 cumulatively is not more than 33 billion. It's not more than 33 billion for the 1.5 years that it has started. Take it separately, you can see for the active is 29 billion, while for the retirees is 3.6 billion. This is the net asset value of the Fund 6 as of end of September 2022. This is telling you how slowly the growth is and how the awareness of this is spread. I believe if adequate sensitization is being carried out and people are enlightened that after your retirement you are going to place on the proceeds of riba, and this one is telling you that after your retirement you are going to be placed on the proceeds of Nestle company, Dangote Cement, Boa Cement, Boa Foods, for example, and what they call it, the sukuk of federal government. Which one are you selecting, please? A or B? Proceeds of bonds and interest bearing or non-interest bearing? As a conscious Muslim, which one are you choosing? The non-interest one. But the implication is that people are not enlightened. People are unaware. They just know that there is a multi-fund structure, and after all, just go and invest it. Particularly, there is another challenge that make people to be unaware, which is lack of access to the funds. Because you know, the Pension Reform Act has made it compulsory for any retiree or pension reform RSA holder, retirement savings account holder, that he must remain and continue contributing, and he cannot access anything from the balance of his IRC. Therefore, many people don't pay attention. Some of them receive their balances at the end of the month or quarterly, but they don't care whether this is Sharia compliant or it is not Sharia compliant. Another challenge is general lack of adequate knowledge for the non-interest instruments, including the existing components, that is the banking, the capital market, and the insurance. Up till now, there are so many people, even among Muslims, that believe there is no difference between the conventional banking and the non-interest or Islamic banking. And unfortunately, even among scholars, some will tell you there is no difference between Islamic banking and the conventional banking. So this gap is also one of the challenges that is affecting the growth of the Fund 6 or the non-interest pension. Another challenge is the one I have earlier highlighted, the provision being made by the structure or by the guidelines as issued by the PENCOM, that in the absence of the adequate Sharia compliant facilities, pension fund administrators can invest the funds in some interest bearing or conventional instruments, which is being classified by so many scholars as a public need that can be treated as necessity, which is darura in Islam. As you all know, ad-darurat tubihul mahdurat. And another qaida is that ad-darura tuqaddaru bi qadariha. Another challenge for the growth of this system is our ethno-religious sensitivity. You know, Nigeria is being rated to be the third country when it comes to religious sensitivity, either Muslims or Christians, even though when it comes to the actual values and teachings of Islam or Christianity, we are at the bottom list. But when it comes to the sensitivity and the consciousness of being or of belonging, we are very much. That's why many non-Muslims are there criticizing, sabotaging the Fund 6, considering it to be an Islamization agenda, which is a pure propaganda that has no any basis. And I believe when you compare this challenge with the previous similar challenges experienced 10 years back, when the Islamic Bank was first introduced, I think you can see that more than 60 or at least 50% has already eroded. So even though it is there, but it is very insignificant. And one of the things that will stand as testimony to this is the participation of non-Muslims actively in the non-interest space, non-interest financial space. You will see that in the issuances of Sukuk, more than 60% of the Sukuk investors are bond, that is the interest-bearing bonds investors, which usually, as you all know, the parts of them, usually the majority of those investors are Muslims. So they are also investing in it because they understood that it has nothing to do with conversion or promoting one religion. But it is there also affecting this thing at the institutional level, and sometimes we have to say it boldly, even at the regulatory level. Even at the regulatory level. Some people, because of the position they held, will deliberately sabotage the Fund 6 because it is related to Islam. And we have to sit up to our responsibilities, particularly our Muslims who are having responsibilities or opportunities to make sure that they become good ambassadors of Islam. And this is a moral responsibility, which is a must for all of us. Wherever you find yourself, you are an ambassador, and you are to support and protect your religion wherever you are. Wherever you are, wherever you work, you have to be a very good ambassador of Islam, which is very unfortunate. Many Muslims are even ashamed to show their identity, which is very unfortunate. So at this juncture, I want to emphasize on this, that whoever in a position of authority to support any cause that will assist the smooth running of such initiatives has a duty bound to make sure that he has fulfilled his part. May Allah see us too. These are some of the challenges. Now, what are the prospects? What are the prospects of this Fund 6? Definitely this Fund 6 has so many prospects because it has been institutionalized and it has all the legal backings. The legal backings of it is even there in the primary legislation that established the system. That is the Pension Reform Act of 2014 as amended. So also the regulations issued by the regulator. That's why one of the beauties of the Nigerian non-interest financial space is a robust legal framework, and it is being rated as one of the best or fastest growing around the globe. Considering the time we keyed into non-interest or Islamic financial space, just 10 years, and the remarkable achievements being achieved. So Nigeria is rated as one of the fastest growing jurisdictions of Islamic finance around the globe. And this is testified by even the provisions of the recent reviewed or recent amended acts. For example, the Central Bank Act of 2020 recognized fresh as and other Sharia compliant structures in the act. So it has been institutionalized. So also this system that we're talking about, the pension system, it has been institutionalized, and on daily basis, if you want to track, on the dashboard of PENCOM, there are balances and the performances of all the funds, including the Fund 6. And there is no discrimination. All pension fund administrators, there are about 18 now after the new capitalization policy. There are now about 18 that are licensed who are operating currently in the pension industry. All these PFAs, they have the Fund 6. Only that depends on the retirement savings account holders for those that are having higher RSA holders from the Muslim-dominated areas, you can see their performance is very high, while for those from the other parts, you see it's going lower. But all of them, you must have this Fund 6 as an optional or alternative pension system. Therefore, all you need, if you are an RSA holder, you just go to your pension fund administrator, ask him for the designated form by the PENCOM, which is there for migration. You will just migrate from the interest-bearing fund to the non-interest-bearing fund. And it is free. I stand to be corrected. I am not speaking for PENCOM or any pension fund administrator. I am just advocating for the non-interest or Islamic financial products and services. Another prospect of this system is the growth of the existing facilities or growth of the existing components of Islamic finance. You take, for example, the banking sector. In 10 years, we have 3 standalone or full-fledged Islamic banks. The Jaiz Bank, the Taj Bank, and recently, Lotus Bank. We have 1 subsidiary, which is also a standalone, Sterling Bank. We have also non-interest banks that were operating conventional banks that were operating window of non-interest, which is Islamic banking. We have Sterling, which now converted to subsidiary, SunTrust, and other banks that started and they were having issues like Stanbic IBTC. So also, if you go to insurance, we have about 3 takaful companies: Jaiz Takaful, Halal Takaful, and Jaiz Takaful, Salam Takaful, and Nur Takaful. All these are Sharia compliant or Islamic insurance companies, and they are operating in a Sharia compliant manner. So also, when you look at the capital market, when you look at the issuances of sukuk that were experienced in 5 years, Nigeria made sovereign, the debt management office made sovereign issuances of sukuk about 4 times now, and they are always increasing the volume of these issuances. And whenever it is issued, one of the point of note here is that whenever a sukuk, an issuance is made, it will be oversubscribed. The one in 2021 was oversubscribed by over 460%. The recent one in 2022 was oversubscribed by about 250%. That means people are in need of non-interest or Sharia compliant instruments. So also microfinance banks, so many microfinance banks are being licensed. So also in the capital market space, we have about 4 standalone fund managers and 9 mutual funds. All these are operating in Nigeria within only 10 years, a decade of operation, which means if you are to give another 10 years, it's going to be very big industry, inshallah. One of the potentials is that it will also stimulate the state participation. As been established by the Act, all state governments may like to key in by enacting their own laws because the pension laws are under concurrent list. So there is federal legislation and you can have state legislation. So each state can domesticate their own. One of the major issues for some states, particularly in the north, to migrate to this non-interest is because of the nature of the instruments to be invested. But with the introduction of the Fund 6, definitely many states will key into contributory pension system, and it will create another employment opportunity that will be geared towards reduction of unemployment in the country, which is one of the major socio-economic challenges in the country. Due to the time factor, indeed, the emergence of non-interest pension in Nigeria will no doubt cajole or satisfy the apathy of many Muslims who wants their investment funds or pension funds to be invested in Sharia compliant manner. Therefore, the regulatory authorities should give all the necessary support and provide this thing with what it requires to be fully functional. Because, for example, for 1.5 years that this system is being kickstarted, the structure that is being established to be in the Sharia compliance or in the Sharia governance structure, that is the PINAC, Pension Industry Financial Advisory, Pension Industry Advisory Committee. This PINAC up to now has not been formed. Therefore, there is no any specific structure that is protecting this Fund 6. It is just there under the conventional funds, while it has a special nature that requires added layer and added structure. But all this, it is not there because, as I earlier highlighted, the implementation is very slow. Therefore, there is need for this to be done, inshallah. So also there is need for carrying out mass sensitization so that people will get enlightened to know that they have choice. They have choice. It is their own money. They want it, therefore it has to be invested the way they want it. So there is need for massive sensitization to be carried out in form of public lectures like this one, in form of seminars, town hall meetings, and other means of engagements, which will definitely make people understand the prospects of this and give them their preferences of their religious choices. That is what they want, and this is their provision of their religions. So let them be enlightened so that their funds will be invested in the way they want it. So the time provided or given to the lecture we are already there. So I will stop there and take some of the comments or questions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay. Stakeholders supposed to be understanding English. Anyway, a gurguje bayanin da muka yi a tsari ne na fansho wanda gwamnatin tarayya ta kawo shi tun shekarar 2004, wanda yake ya sanya an buɗe wasu kamfanoni ko kuma bankuna na fansho wanda suke juya kudaden 'yan fansho, wanda bayan malamai sun yi nazari akan hanyar da ake gudanar da wannan tsari, sun tabbatar da cewa hanyoyin da ake juya kudaden ta yadda suke karuwa hanyoyi ne da suka ci karo da karantarwar addinin musulunci. Don haka tun lokacin da aka fara samar da tsare-tsaren banki na musulunci da sauran hada-hadar kuɗi da abin da yake da alaƙa da inshora da kasuwar hada-hadar hannun jari ta ƙasa, dukkaninsu an kawo musu tsarin musulunci, to sai ake ta ƙoƙari da yunkurin samar da tsarin da bai ci karo da musulunci ba shi ma na fanshi wanda yake so sai ya koma. to an samu nasarar kawo wannan tsarin shine aka kira shi da fund 6 bayan ita hukumar kula da fansho ta kawo multi-fund structure, ma'ana wani tsari na asusu kala-kala wanda aka kasa shi daban-daban ta yadda za a juya kudaden. To sai aka kawo na hudun ana ce mishi shine asusu na shida ana ce mishi fund 6 shine wanda babu kudin ruwa a cikinsa kuma ana gudanar da shi a bisa tsarin da bai ci karo da musulunci ba. To wannan tsarin yadda yake gudana shine abin da yake na kudaden 'yan fansho ko kudin fansho da ake tarawa a asusun tanadi na fansho ana sanya shi ne a hanyoyin juyawa waɗanda ba su ci karo da koyarwar musulunci ba, kamar abin da yake da alaka da sukuk na gwamnatin tarayya ko kuma sukuk na jihohi ko kuma sukuk wanda manya-manyan kamfanoni za su iya yin sa kamar wadda kamfanin family home suka yi. Hakanan kuma za a iya juya shi a kamfanoni, hannun jarin kamfanonin da suke ba sa ta'amuli da abin da ya haramta, ma'ana suna ta'amuli da abubuwan da ba su ci karo da shari'ar musulunci ba. Hakanan sauran abubuwa wanda ake amfani da su a kasuwar hada-hadar hannun jari, kamar abin da ake cewa shaidar takardar juya kuɗi da kuma abin da ake haɗawa ake tara wani asusu domin juya kuɗaɗe a kasuwar hada-hadar hannun jari, abin da ake ce ma mutual funds. Wannan tsarin shine yadda ake gudanar da kasuwanci, wanda kuma dama shine babban abin da ya sanya masa haramci, shine abubuwan da ake juyawa ba su ci karo da ba su daidai da shari'a ba. To bayan an kawo shi an fara gudanar da shi, da dama daga cikin mutane wasu ba su ma san cewa wancan ɗin haramun ba ne, wanda suka san ma haramun ne sun yi halin ko ukula ba su damu ba, wanda akan wannan gabar muka yi bayanin cewa addinin musulunci ya koyar da kowanne mutum ya tsaya ya tabbatar da cewa hanyar da zai ci abinci hanya ce da ta daidai da karantarwa addinin musulunci, ma'ana hanya ce da take ta halal. Annabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ya ce dukkanin tsokar da ta tsiro a jikin mutum ta hanyar cin haram to ya tabbatar cewa wuta ita fi cancanta da shi. To kaga a wannan tsarin na juya kudin fansho a harkokin riba da harkokin caca ko harkokin da akwai rashin tabbas a cikinsu, to tabbas hanyoyi ne da suka haramta. Don haka duk wanda aka juya masa nasa, to abin da zai faru da shi, khairun nasi man tala amaluhu umuruhu wa hasuna amaluhu, mafi alkhairin mutane shine wanda shekarunsa suka yi tsaho, aikinsa na alkhairi suka yi yawa. To shi kuma yanzu wanda aka yi masa haka sai ya zama sharrun nasi kenan. Shekarunka sun zo ƙarshe, kayi ritaya, kana kusantar kabarinka, kuma an sanya ka akan proceed da ribar debentures, treasury bills da sauran abubuwa na riba, wanda wannan dukkanin musulmi da yake so ya wanye da duniya lafiya, ya je ya haɗu da mahalicinsa subhanahu wa ta'ala lafiya, ya kamata ya faɗaku ya san cewa hanyar da yake cin abinci ta halatta. Daga cikin hanyoyin da za ka tsaftace cin abincinka shine wannan tsarin da ake so a ɗora ka akai ko aka ɗora ka akai, shine tsarin kuɗin ritaya. Bayan ka yi ritaya fa da shi za ka dinga cefane, da shi za ka siyi shinkafa ko da ta sauko, da shi za ka siyi mai, da shi za ka biya kuɗin makarantar yara, da shi za ka ɗinka suturar da za ka sa. To lalle akwai haɗari a ciki, shine muka yi jan hankali da cewa duk wanda ya saurari wannan to ya yi ƙoƙari ya ga cewa ya yi patronizing wancan tsari don ya samu ya tsira da mutuncinsa da addininsa. A takaice wannan shine bayanin da muka yi, abin da muka faɗa na daidai Allah ka sami tarayya cikin lada, kuskure ko tuntuban harshe Allah ya yafe mana. Na'am. Wa alaikum salam. Amin. Yeah, the non-contributory, which is the defined benefit, the old system of pension. Yeah. Yeah. No, for the defined one, I have earlier highlighted that it has no any Sharia implication because it is a non-commutative contract. It is a contract of benevolence that the government is now dashing you. And if it is being dashed to you, there is no any issue of whether it is equivalent to what you deposited or it is not equivalent, or from where it is being invested. Rather, government from its own corpus, it now dash you this thing. So you can receive it without any issue, and this is the major fatwa by so many international fatwa issuances authorities. And it is being certified to be Sharia compliant for the defined benefit. But for the defined contribution, this is the one that is having so many issues, and it is the one that is the Fund 6 is provided as an alternative.
Yeah,
Wa alaikum assalam.
Going forward on the defined pension,
A defined benefit.
benefits,
Yeah.
yes. If your employers dash you that money as you
Yeah.
simplify it, it goes still to a pension fund manager like Sigma or so.
Yeah.
And then they decide to invest it the way they feel. So there is still an issue there.
No, there is no issue there. The one that I'm referring to, the defined benefit, is the old pension system, which is currently being in operation in PTAT, isn't it? Am I correct? The one, all retirees under PTAT, that is the pension transition arrangement, and the ones in the states. Does this one also go through the pension fund administrators?
Yeah, I'm a beneficiary.
Okay.
It goes to, they don't give you the money directly from their...
Yeah. But the money is not invested, what I'm saying.
They give the money to the pension administrator.
And they pay you.
And they pay you, so they have to invest it, and you don't have control.
No, I think they are giving you fixed amount. What they are giving is fixed because it is not being invested. Yeah, it's fixed. So they are just agents. In this case, they are agents. They will just put it to the pool of the funds under their custody, but they are not investing it and giving you the proceeds of the investment. The major issue is on the proceeds of the investment, which all the multi-fund structure cut across this, and it is one of the key what they call principles that establish the contributory pension system, that it has to be invested. While for the defined benefit, maybe for the administrative convenience, it is now being channeled to them so that you will be receiving through the pension fund administrators. So I believe it still has no any Sharia issue. Wallahu a'ala wa a'lam. Any other question? Okay, maybe the last one, because the time is not in our side. Can you talk louder? Yes. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, this is very important question because it's one of the areas that has not been even touched by the current regulations. The way or the system of payment of pension after retirement, there are three ways of payment. One is lump sum withdrawal, and this one has no any problem. It is from our own fund or money. The balance of your RSA you will now withdraw and take a lump sum, a certain percentage, as will be decided by the regulations. The second type is the program withdrawal, which is going to be based in accordance with your expected lifespan. Put it in quote, expected lifespan. That is, so many considerations are to be taken so that if you are, they will assume that you are now 60 after retirement, you are hypertensive, you are diabetic, you may not live more than 75. So that the balance of your RSA will now be spread for 15 years, so that you will be receiving quarterly amount from this program withdrawal. This one, the basis being established, it has some elements of Sharia issues, but it has to do with the issue of al-qada wal-qadar and all of that. The second issue, which is the most important, that is the fiqhi aspect, is the one which has to do with the annuity. You purchase an annuity, which is the life insurance, with your money, and that life insurance company will now place you under fixed amount that they will just be giving you up to your death. For example, 100,000 up to your death. If you short live, they got it away. If you long live, you are okay. So this is commercial insurance, and it is typically, absolutely, entirely and completely haram. And it is being issued and declared by the International Islamic Fiqh Academy that the commercial insurance, whether family, whether car, whether whatever sort, if it is commercial, it is haram because it contains so many levels or layers of prohibition, including gharar, including semblance of gambling, and what they call it, the riba associated with it, because the surplus is being invested in the Sharia or in the conventional instruments. Therefore, this is one of the areas the regulator should take care, and there is alternative. We have family insurance, family takaful. As I've listed about 3 takaful companies. Whoever wants his own balance of RSA to be transferred for a takaful company, they have so many arrangements that are Sharia compliant. But currently, PENCOM has not made any provision, according to my knowledge. According to my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected always, there is no any provision for payment of pension. So I believe, inshallah, as this is just a starting point, this will be communicated to them, and in the subsequent review of their regulations, they will take it into consideration, inshallah. So this is very point that you raised. Thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khairan, and it is already time for prayer. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.